welcome to the Ambitious Women of Color Summer of Leadership series, where we use the next few months to intentionally become the obvious choice for leadership roles. I'm your host, Jessica Lynn Rojas. Before we get into today's episode, I want to make sure you know about something I created specifically for the women listening to this podcast. It's called the Paid and Promoted series, a free 5-day coaching experience for ambitious women of color who are doing great work but aren't seeing the leadership, opportunities, the recognition, or compensation they know they're capable of. And I want to be honest with you about why right now is actually the most important time to go through this. You see, most people think career growth happens during performance review seasons, but the conversations that shapes next year's opportunity are often happening right now during the summer. Review season is usually when those decisions get announced. The conversations that influence those decisions are often happening months earlier. The women who step into bigger opportunities next year are building towards them right now. That's exactly why I'm spending this summer doing the work alongside you. We're documenting our impact, building our leadership stories, and intentionally becoming the obvious choice for what's next together. So if you're ready to stop hoping somebody notices your potential and start intentionally becoming leadership material, head to the show notes and join us inside Paid and Promoted. Now let's get into today's episode. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the summer series, locking in your leadership role in the next 6 months. I'm so excited for this. And honestly, today's episode's a little bit different, because I'm doing something that I don't do enough of, which is recording solo episodes. So I know my podcast has been about bringing in guests and guest conversations. And I've been sitting with this idea for a while now and wanted to start here, especially right now in the summertime where, we're thinking about what are the things that we want for the rest of the year and really thinking about our career and our life and where do we want to see ourselves. So the reason I wanted to start in this topic is because being halfway through the year and every year around this time, I stop and I ask myself a question that feels different from the usual check-ins. Not what did I accomplish or what did I set out to do, but what am I actually intentionally building between now and December? Because a lot can change in 6 months. A promotion can happen, a leadership opportunity that opens up, or maybe you're doing a stretch assignment or a new relationship with senior leader that changes what's available to you. And I know for a lot of women listening to this podcast, we have leadership goals. Maybe not something that feels urgent right now, maybe not something that you're actively pursuing in this moment, but somewhere you are thinking about a role, a title, a level of influence that you want. So this summer, I wanted us to really use these months intentionally. I wanted this series to feel less like me teaching you something from up here and more like sitting down with you and getting honest about what it actually takes to position yourself differently. Because the women who step into leadership roles in January are not starting to prepare in January. No, no, no. The position's already happening. The conversation's already started. And the way that you're being perceived is building for months. You don't just all of a sudden, I want a leadership role in January, so I'm going to start working towards it now. So this is why I wanted to have this podcast episode and why I wanted to have this summer series, because just like you, I am looking to level up in my career as well. And just like you, I'm going to be implementing all these things. And I wanted to do it with you. So over the next episodes, I'm going to get into what actually creates movement, not the generic career advice that you're used to hearing, not the working harder and grind and show them that you are the best and they can't ignore you, and not that kind of advice. I'm talking about the real shifts that I see ambitious women of color making right before things start moving differently in their career. And I wanted to start with the things I wish someone had told me years ago, which is not about working harder, because that is not what's actually going to get you the leadership role. It's way beyond that. It's way more than just working harder, proving yourself, showing them that you're the best at the role, showing them that you can handle more responsibility, or starting to do the role ahead of you so that they can see that you're a shoo-in, that you're the right fit for that role. No, no, no. That is not what we're going to talk. So before we get into anything else, I want you to sit with one question. And I mean, really sit with it, not just hear it and move on. If getting into a leadership role was one of your goals for this year, are you actually closer to it than you were in January? Or are you just caring more than you were in January? Because those two generally are not the same thing. And for a lot of us, if we're being honest with ourselves, the answer is that we've gotten busier but not necessarily closer to the leadership role. So I want to tell you something that happened in my own career because I feel like this is really going to help you resonate with that or feel familiar. So I was embedded into a specific team in a company I was working for about a year. So I had been working in that sector of the company for a while now. And with this specific team, it was about a year. And during that year, said yes to so many things because I really wanted to understand everything that we were doing. It was around strategic planning and product development. And I really wanted to understand our stakeholders, our clients, our products, and everything. I set out to build relationships with stakeholders. I learned everything about the department inside and out because I was invested and I really saw myself growing in this area. And, my goal was really being the subject matter expert and learning everything and being available so that when a leadership position opened up, I could be the right fit for that. So a leadership position did open up. And I really believe I was the obvious choice. I mean, I had an MPH and I just finished my PMP certification and I knew the work, I knew the people, I knew the culture, I knew the company. So I was like, this is definitely the job I'm going to get. So I went through the process of interviewing and went through all the stages and rounds of the interview because even if I was in the team already, it was a brand new role opening up. So I needed to apply just like everyone else. I thought that it was an obvious yes. They ended up giving the role to someone else. And that really crushed me because I just remember thinking that there was something that I was lacking or was, going through everything that I had done. Like, did I not showcase my value? Was I not producing quality work? Why did they not see me as the right fit for this role? And if I'm being honest, too, the girl that did get the role, she was a white woman with an MBA and had less experience in that space and less experience in healthcare and in that sector than I did. I just remember sitting for a long time trying to figure out what happened, comparing myself to her, maybe her MBA was stronger than my public health degree. Or maybe they saw her more as analytical and more strategic. And if you know about my career path, that was something that I had experienced in early in my career where I started questioning my abilities, especially around being strategic because I had a boss that really didn't value the approach that I took and questioned my intelligence. So it just took me back to that place. But I mean, I knew that that wasn't the reason, but subconsciously I still went there. And I just kept going around in circles. And honestly, it felt personal. I mean, I had given that team a year. I had shown up. I had delivered. I felt like none of that was being seen. And I just couldn't understand what I had done wrong because I had been really valuable to that team and had done so much work and knew the strategies, knew the direction they wanted to take this team. And I just couldn't understand what went wrong. So actually after that, I ended up leaving the company. It was around the time that there were layoffs happening. There were only limited roles available. And I really wanted to grow in my career. And I just felt like that place was no longer the place that I needed to be in. And that really crushed me because honestly, I really loved the company, but then I just started feeling like I wasn't being valued. And I knew that if I wanted to grow in my career and get a leadership role, a senior level role, that I needed to go somewhere else. So that's what I did. So I made a strategic decision to look something externally. So I applied to a role on LinkedIn on a Wednesday. And then I heard back from the recruiter the next day. And then I had an interview by Monday and then a second interview by Wednesday. And kid you not, by Friday, I had an offer. The internal process that I was at the company prior had taken months to go through. I mean, I went through all the rounds. And then even after the final round, I still had to wait weeks to hear back on whether or not they were moving forward with me. And with this external company, everything happened within 7 days. It could be a lot of reasons, right? It could be that they needed somebody really quickly and that's why they moved forward fast. But all in all, I ended up winning. I ended up getting a senior level role. I ended up making 35K more in my salary. So that was pretty great. So then it made me feel better about my decision to apply externally and to go somewhere else. And what is crazy is that there wasn't any difference in my credentials or my experience or anything It's just that the difference was in how I showed up because, like, in the external process, I positioned myself as a leader. I talked about my work, I talked about the value, I talked about how I was a leader, and I walked in as I belong, and I walked in as this role is mine. And I got the role. And that experience taught me something I hadn't fully understood before. I didn't have a performance problem at my previous company, I had a positioning problem. And there's a difference between those two things that change everything. Here's what nobody tells you, and I think is one of the most important things I can share with you in this episode. At a certain point in your career, being excellent is baseline. Everyone around you is at the level and everyone's capable. Everyone deliver. Everyone works hard. So when the decisions for leaderships are made, they're not made based on who works the hardest or who has the most impressive list of accomplishments. And here's the specific thing I want you to really think about. A lot of women who are trying to position themselves for leadership roles are actually doing the opposite of what they intended to do. They think that they're building a case for promotion by doing more, being more, saying yes to things, being more available. But what they're actually building is a case for why the organization can function without them exactly where they currently are. When you become indispensable, you actually make it harder for people to picture you somewhere else. And here's the question I really want you to sit with. The people who have influence over your career trajectory, when they think about you, do they think about you as the person who holds it all together? Or do they think about you as someone who is ready to leave something bigger? Because those two things get treated very differently when an opportunity opens up. So I need to talk about context here because I think it's really easy to hear all this and be like, okay, I need to stop working hard. And I don't want you to walk away with that because it completely misses the real story. We didn't become overachievers randomly. A lot of us are first generation, daughters of immigrants, eldest daughters, and we have been in areas where we had to be the ones navigating everything for our family. We had the unspoken job of figuring it out for our whole family. One of the few people in the spaces that looked like us, we had to work really hard to be there. We had to, work really hard to get the degrees, to get the credentials, to get in the spaces that our parents didn't have opportunities to. So the margin of error for us is so much smaller. And we have to show up having already earned our spot to feel like we deserve that space, to feel like we deserve to be in the room, to feel like we deserve that role. So working harder wasn't the problem. It was actually really, smart for us to respond that in our reality. It helped us build credibility in spaces that weren't given to us freely. It helped us survive. It helped us create the kind of safety that we needed in those environments that were designed to welcome us. And that's exactly why the idea of changing the strategy can feel scary, almost like you're betraying on something. So if your reaction right now is something like, okay, but if I stop doing all the things, who's going to do it? And I don't want, them to judge me or to think that I'm a slacker or to think that I'm not doing enough or working enough or committed enough for my role. And trust me, like I have had those thoughts and I've had, my own clients who tell me that a lot of times too, the high expectations that they've set on themselves are set on themselves. It's not like I was expected to perform this way and my job expects 110% from me. In some cases, yes, but a lot of times it's like self-imposed. Like you think that you say no to things. You think that you not accepting everything that's given to you. You think that you not being the hardest worker means that you're a slacker and that you're not committed and that you're showing that you're not right for that job. Where leadership isn't about like who is working the hardest or who's carrying everything. It's about deciding what actually matters and making sure the right things are done. Those are two very different things and different way of showing up. So the first thing I want to do this week is what I call a should work audit. So I want you to pull up your calendar from the last 2 weeks and look at everything that you've done and really look at it. And I want you to really get honest with yourself, like what was driving each decision. Like look at the work you volunteer for, even the ones nobody asked you to do. Work on what landed on your plate, maybe because you're the reliable one and everyone knows you won't drop things. Or look at the things you're doing because saying no feels uncomfortable or because someone else would be disappointed if you didn't do it. So this is not about deciding if any of those tasks are good or bad. We're looking at what was the motivation underneath them? Because there's a difference between doing something because it's strategic and doing something because you're afraid of what people might think if you don't do it. So ask yourself honestly, if I stop doing this tomorrow, what story am I worried people would tell about me? And really listen to the answer that comes up. Do you think they're going to be like, oh, they're going to think I'm difficult, or they're going to think I'm not a team player, or they're going to think I've changed and I'm no longer committed, or I'm ready to move on and not interested in this anymore? So the task on your calendar is not the issue. The fear behind why you're doing it, that's what we're going to look at. A lot of us are making career decisions from guilt and obligation and the need to keep proving ourselves rather than actually from strategy. And I say this with so much compassion because I've been there too. I spent years doing it. And here's the question I really want us to sit this week. How much of your calendar is being driven by where you want to go? And how much is being driven by the fear of disappointing people around you? So another shift that we can do is what I call a leadership block. I want to make really important distinction here because I think this is going to be useful for you where we're going in the summer with this series. I'm a huge believer of the brag log. Trust me, I have one. I recommend all my clients have one. You should absolutely be tracking your accomplishments, your wins, the impact you're creating, what you bring to the company, what has changed and everything because of you. That matters. And we can talk about that later. But the second log that I want us to really start keeping and is one that actually becomes more important when leadership opportunities come up. I call it the leadership log. So the difference between these two is that the brag log answers the question of what did I accomplish? What, value did I bring? What improved because of me? A leadership log answers a different question, which is how do I lead? So I want you to start tracking different things. Track the decisions you influence even when you didn't have formal authority to make them. So I want you to track the risks that you saw coming before anyone else flagged them and what you did about it. And track the recommendations you made, whether or not they were followed. Track the moments you aligned stakeholders who weren't seeing eye to eye. I want you to track the times you brought clarity to something that was ambiguous when everyone else wanted it to go a different direction. So most of us already have years of evidence that we're high performers. So that's what, the brag log helps. What we don't often have documented is evidence that we are already operating as leaders. And once you start noticing and tracking those things, there's going to be a shift in yourself and you're going to see yourself differently because you're going to see like, hey, I'm already operating as a leader. I'm already a leader. And now the last shift I want you to leave with today is one that sounds small, but honestly changes the signal you're sending in a really significant way. So there's one question that a lot of us default in our relationship with leaders and colleagues, and it's the question of how can I help? And I understand why you ask that. It comes from a place where you want to contribute, you want to show that you're a team player. But that question positions you as support. And while support is valuable, is now what gets you into leadership. So I want you to start trying something different. So we're going to do different questions here. So instead of asking, what do you need from me? Try asking, what risk should we be thinking about right now? And instead of asking, how can I support this? Try asking, what priorities matter most to leadership right now? And how does my work connect to those? So now you're not just like supporting and adding, but you are really seeing how your contributions and the work that you do is supporting the overall goals of the company, supporting the overall goals of the department, and supporting what leadership is working on. And that's like where you see the value, the influence, the authority that you're having in those spaces, not just like somebody that's doing work and supporting, but you are a leader. So before next week's episode, I want you to pick one of these shifts to make. So not all three, because I know, we're high achievers. We want to do all of them. We're like, okay, I jot down these three shifts you gave me and I'm going to start implementing them now. But what I want is to actually get out of that pattern and for you to just pick one. I want you to experiment, pay attention to what feels uncomfortable, and then see what lands differently. And I want you to do that for the next 7 days and really start understanding like what are the things that you're doing and how you're already a leader. And if this conversation is resonating with you and you want to go deeper, I actually have put together a free 5-day video series specifically for women of color who know that they're capable of more and feel stuck between the gap of being valuable and being seen as a leader. So this is going to be so helpful, especially in this summer series. So I know that this is something that's going to help you for the next months to become the leadership material for that next role that's going to be open up for you. So this is called the Paid and Promoted series. And it goes deeper into everything that we touched today and then some more. So we're going to be talking all about the different shifts that we need to make, especially as women of color, because of how we grew up, because of what was taught to us, and really get into the key shifts that you can be doing around money and the way that you see value and the way that you see your value. We're not talking about just like money, like how much you make or money, how much you're worth, but really looking at the value that you bring in your role. And also, we're going to talk about visibility, we're going to talk about authority, and we're going to talk about positioning. So, these are the hidden patterns that I see all the time in high achieving women of color and women that are overworking and wondering why their career isn't moving the way that they want. So every day is going to include something practical that you could actually apply. And it's an opportunity for you to also get mini coaching with me. So you can grab that at the link in the show notes. And I know this is going to give you exactly the language for the things that you've been feeling. And maybe you just didn't have words for that yet. I'm really excited for this and excited to hear from you on how this has helped you and what are the things that are coming up for you. All right, everyone, I'll see you next week. Before I let you go, I want to leave you with this. This summer isn't just about preparing for our next opportunity. It's about becoming the kind of leader people already trust before the opportunity ever opens up. The woman who communicates her value, who makes her impact visible, who influences decisions, who's already being experienced as leadership material. Because promotions don't just happen during performance review seasons. They're built in the conversations, the relationships, and the moments that happen long before anyone posts the job. That's exactly why I created Paid and Promoted. It's a free 5-day coaching experience where we'll spend this summer documenting our impact, building our leadership stories, and intentionally becoming the obvious choice for what's next. And I'm doing this alongside with you. As I continue to position myself for my own leadership opportunities, I'm using these same tools, asking myself the same questions, and practicing the same strategies I'm inviting you to practice. Because I don't want to just teach you this. I want this to be something we live together. And if you're ready to stop hoping somebody notices your potential and start intentionally building the career that you want, head to the show notes and join us inside Paid and Promoted. And if you're ready for more personalized support, send me a DM on Instagram at Jessica Lynn Rojas or book a sales call at jessicalynrojas.com/scheduling. Take care of yourself, career baddies. Vámonos.